pleasure to be in your presence this evening. I'll be quick as possible because it's Friday and we all have to go somewhere. Thank you, Tandy, for inviting me over, and I feel like this is a perfect place for me to be in because I was once here about 9 years ago in an incubator at the Nelson Mandela University, but I'm going to tell you all of that through I'll try to make it 10 minutes, a 10-minute presentation of my journey since I started Maxhosa Africa. Little bit background about me. I'm from Port Elizabeth, born and raised, and I was raised by a single mother who is in the middle over there. Her name is Laduma Ngxokolo. She was a knitwear designer back in the 80s, and the outfit on the left is one of her stunning work that she did in the 80s. In 2001, when I was in grade 8, my late mother took me shopping for a TV set. I grew up in a home without a TV set, by the way. People used to tell us about generations in high school and primary school. We were lost because we couldn't afford to buy a TV set in our home. Education was our parents' highest priority. And so this day she took us there to buy this TV set. My 3 siblings were super excited that we bring home a TV set. We got to the Salvation Army after she fetched me at school. And when we got there, she saw a knitting machine that looks like that for 150 rand. And normally on the market, it goes for about 8,000 rand. She unfortunately lost hers while she moved out of her home to commit to marriage. But she got a nostalgic feeling that I want to knit again in 2001. She bought that machine for 150 rand. Obviously, I was disappointed that we didn't buy a TV set. She bought a machine instead. My siblings were super disappointed as well, but I was, as a curious person, I was so curious, what does this machine do and what is it capable of? So I volunteered to help her assemble the machine, and that night she knitted a scarf. Boom, it came out of the machine. I was like, wow, magic. And as a person that grew up reading magazine and covering my primary school books with Gucci campaigns and Louis Vuitton campaigns, I was like, yo, I can actually come up with a brand. And I spent my high school life knitting. I didn't tell anyone in my community because it wasn't cool for a black young guy to be knitting. And even in high school as well. But in high school, I had a niche market. I used to make scarves for students. The high school was my competitor because I was margining my scarves a bit lower than them. It had the high school colors, and that's where my business acumen began within the design space. Some of my colleagues didn't even pay me. I couldn't care because I was super passionate about it. Until I got to a point where in high school I had to think about what career direction I was going to follow. Textiles was my passion because at Lost Brown High School I did textile design as a subject. I did fine art as a subject. I did music as a subject and mathematics. Don't ask me why I combined all of that. I did a 4-year degree at the Nelson Mandela University in textile design and technology. 2010 was when I initially started the Maxhosa idea, but back then it wasn't Maxhosa at all. It was all based on me trying to come up with an alternative dress code, because when I was a Xhosa initiate, as you might know, all Xhosa boys have to go through manhood initiation when we are aged 18, and we have to get rid of all our belongings before we go through that initiation that happens far away in the forest. Knitwear is one of the essentials that we purchase, and what I could see from that practice was that we had super limited choices of which brands that you can buy and what aesthetic those brands infused in the design. So your Leyland Scott, Pringle of Scotland, Gant were some of the choices that you could only find, Nevada and lots more. As a textile designer, as a fashion enthusiast, I felt like this is not my type of style. It's too boring, it's not colorful, it doesn't resemble our heritage. I grew up in a home where we used to make a lot of beadwork. So we used to look at patterns and colors. So I wanted to see those elements in my knitwear. And so I wanted to provide this element, this alternative dress code, but I wanted something that would also be a sort of a solution for social entrepreneurship. Some of my family members used to work in textile industry in Port Elizabeth. As you might know, South Africa used to boom in the textile and clothing sector. But when we had a lot of Chinese imports coming into the country so fast, we lost about plus minus 500,000 jobs. I wanted to retain that momentum, but go into the luxury niche market because technically we can't beat the Chinese because they've advanced, they started their advancement decades ago. And the only thing that I believe that we can focus on is our heritage, is our commodities, and also our humility as people. And so 2010, I took my thesis project, which was based on coming up with designs for Xhosa initiates, and I applied for an international design competition. I went to London to represent South Africa. I won the South African leg. And when I got there, I was like, whoa, all the representatives were representing their continent. And there were Chinese from China, there were Pakistanis, there were Australians. Got so intimidated because I never traveled out of the country before. First time in a plane, first time in a hotel, first time for everything, and I was traveling alone. But I thought I'm gonna give it my best, because I've never achieved anything technical and tangible in life. And that was my first shot. And I took the first awards and beat all of them. And that was my first feedback of how people felt about my knitwear. So the judges were so impressed because it ticked all the criteria for the competition. And traveled back home. A month after I graduated, had to think, what do I do now? I've got an idea, no funding, no commitment from parents and say that, okay, you can use our security to get funding. I went to NYDA. They said, there's no funding, that's enough. And I went to CEDA, I went to IDC, I went to ECDC, all of them. A call came in from Ravi Naidu, who's the founder of Design Indaba, and said, Laduma, I want you to come to speak at the Design Indaba. I didn't even know what was Design Indaba at that time. I said, okay. He said, jump on a plane next week, come here. And he gave me a stand to showcase my products. I spoke to about 2,000 people, first time speaking publicly, and about 200 people wanted to buy the pieces on set. I didn't even have one to sell at that time. And then I got an email after my presentation from a lady called Haneli Rupert, who's got the most beautiful boutique in Africa, in Cape Town, Long Street. She said, yo, I believe in your product. I'm gonna frame it in my boutique. I'm gonna make sure that I do justice to it. She did commit. She gave me 50% payment. She ordered about 250 pieces. I was like, wow, this is a first shot of my career. I need to make sure that I impress this client by all means. I did my first production at the Nelson Mandela University incubator. I approached the Nelson Mandela University. There is an innovation department within the university where they commercialize ideas that come out of the university. They felt like my idea was capable of that. So they loaned me 150,000 rand and gave me about 60 square meter space where I could operate from. And that gave me a very big insight on how the business environment worked, because they allocated 3 people to mentor me. The lady over here, Rita Khilumi, was my mentor. She used to be hot back in the 60s and 70s. And she's showcased in Paris and in all the international fashion capitals. And she just happened to teach my mother how to do knitwear in the 80s. My mother never introduced me to her. I just, by chance, ran up to her at university and said, hey, do you know my mother used to use this machine when she was alive, when I was in grade 8? She said, oh, your mother is bold and whatnot. And I said, yeah. She said, I taught her how to knit. And she loved me, even sometimes when I was thinking of giving up, I used to call her, Retha, screw this. I'm going to go and look for a job at Foschini or something. You say, you need to know that you are 1 in a billion that knows how to do knitwear. Don't underestimate it. I've done this. You can achieve a lot with it. I said, okay, let's give it a try. And I went to the back and repicked my machines and put them together. Because operating in an environment where there is no benchmark to look at and say that, okay, this is the journey that I'm following, I felt like a black sheep in my own space, because literally when I did my textile design BA course, when we began the course, there was about 200 of us. And people took graphic design, photography. There was only about 20 of us that took textile design. And when I was doing my last year, I was the only one left. And the textile industry was dying. And so I had to rethink, because I started this back in high school. And these were some of the prints that I used to make when I was in grade 7 and 9. I always had passion for textile design. It's just that I just happened to run across something that was so close to me, which is Xhosa initiates dress code. And I wanted to make sure that I do justice to it and change this whole scenario to something that could be materialized and create a few jobs. As you know, Port Elizabeth is the biggest mohair hub in the world. And so I got some of their support, and that is where I initially sourced my raw material from. It was so easy because it was right in the back door of my home, of the Eastern Cape. And the beadwork that I actually ran across was the most astonishing artifacts that I've ever seen. I've always seen beadwork from anthropology books, but I got invited to go through the drawers at the Nelson Mandela Art Museum, where I saw this beautiful beadwork. One of the things that struck my mind was that, how do these people draft these designs? How do they plan them? How do they execute them? I still don't know, because the elegance and the balance and the color combinations were so good that when I do the modification and interpretation, it turns out to something that people can see the resemblance, but the colors just come out so good. And I had to make sure that I capture the colors as much as I can, but not create something that is predictable. Because I was seeing a lot out there, especially in the curio market. I didn't want to create something that I could put in a curio space. I wanted to create something that I can place within a luxury environment. And this was the first 5 pieces that I did at the Nelson Mandela University in 2010. And I had to think when I initially started my brand, what do I call this brand? For me, I felt like I needed to be as honest as possible. The inspiration behind Maxhosa is Xhosa beadwork. And the work had already been done. I saw myself as just a person that was the bridge, that had to take the work and cross it over to the modern age, where I myself, as someone that's influenced by hip hop, by a lot of things, that also lies my heritage. I don't want to see myself in umbhaco because that's too traditional and boring for me. I want to see myself in something that I can wear on a daily basis, but not on Heritage Day. And so Maxhosa as a brand name was a no-brainer because I wanted to acknowledge the people that started the craft, but then say, I'm telling the story of the Xhosa people, but in my own perspective. And fast forward into the future, it then became easy for me to create collections upon collection and also evolve the designs as well. Because when I did my research deep into Xhosa beadwork, I discovered that there's about 200 plus minus clans within Xhosa people. And each and every clan had their preferential color combinations, which was fascinating for me because I was like, yo, I'm sorted for life. Like, I can jump into that color combo and that and that and that and that and that and that. I'm done. And if you decode the patterns, you would realize that I only use about 5 basic motifs. But I interchange them in a way that makes them look new. For instance, I showcased my first collection in South Africa in 2014 at the Joburg Fashion Week, and named this collection. I named this collection Buyelembo, which means let's go back to the nostalgic days and recreate a sort of aesthetic that we could have possibly had if the Eastern Cape or Xhosa territory was never colonized. So I use some of those imaginative feelings when I design my collections. Each and every year, I make sure that I change the theme of my collection. That generates press as well. Literally, to this day, I've never paid a PR agent or a press company to get my work out there. Everything, most of the published features that we've done are on requests. In fact, these days, some of them, the ones that don't really resonate with us, we turn them down. And even public icons, Oprah Hugh, Ricky Ricky, Terry Peto, most of them approach us. A lot of people have a misconception that we go out there and give them freebies and place products on them. They come to us. Of course, there are those ones that take chances and say, yeah, hook me up, I'll put it on TV, bro. And I'm like, nah, fam. All of these people buy, and international public icons included in that list as well. They buy the product, and some of them come back and say thank you, because it makes them stand out of the crowd. If you saw John Kani when he did a premiere of the Murder Mystery movie, you should have seen how he popped out of all the global stars. And today, my 3 siblings, which is my old sister, who's a year older than me, my young brother, who's about 2 years younger than me, and young sister, she's 3 years younger than me. They've been working for the company for 4 years now. A lot of people ask me how we do it. Basically, I try to formalize everything that I do. Just because you're my sister, it doesn't mean that I shouldn't have an employee agreement with you, or I shouldn't have an HR consultant to deal with our issues at work when there's an issue. They've got retirement policies. We've got all the normal things that are in place, but above all, we've got a love, convivial relationship that we had to sustain because we lost a parent at a young age, and our parent told us that we must stick together and make sure that no one comes in between us. And that has been a great catalyst for Maxhosa as a business. And the clients as well have been the most overwhelming people for us, because when I started the brand, a lot of discouraging people, some of you will meet those people on your journey. They will say that, why name a brand Maxhosa? Do you think a Zulu person will wear that? No. Do you think a Tswana person or a Nigerian person will wear that? No, because it's Maxhosa. It promotes tribalism. And I told him, you need to know that celebrating ourselves is more important now than it ever was. Because back in the days, Xhosa people got some of their beadwork confiscated and got converted into Christianity. Not that I'm saying Christianity is wrong, but a lot of people forgot where they come from, and the pride just left off because no one was endorsing. We only have ourselves to endorse and say that we are proud of who we are. And Xhosa people are only 1% of Africa's population of about 900 million people. I'm only using a case study of a nation of 12 million people and making sure that I do it justice, and the rest will celebrate that. Today, we sit on only 10% of Xhosa people that buy our products. We have sheiks from the Middle East that buy our product, Moroccans and Nigerians, Tswanas, Sutus, and they wear it proudly. Some of them don't even know me. They walk past me when I see them on the street, because they don't have to know me. The pride that we instill in the product, we see it showing off with them. You know, I'd say that is one of the greatest achievements for me. And I just skipped that one. I don't know why it's going so fast. A year and a half ago, I bought my supplier's factory. When I went to her office, she came to me and said, "Hey, Laduma, you've been supporting us for 3 years now. We're closing down. I'm retiring." She was 60 years old, and said, "You either have to go and manufacture from someone else or look at other options." I was like, "No, there's no ways I'm going." I've been to all the factories around the country. Most of them have screwed me over. Some of them used to create products for my designs without my knowledge and pitch them to Truworths and Foschini. I got my lawyers to give them a few lashes. But with her, I said that, I'm willing to take any risk to make sure that I purchase this factory. I bought it, and I had to inherit staff members of about 25 people. Year and a half now, some of them, we've upgraded them, we've scaled them up and gave them skills that they never thought that they would ever achieve. Some of these ladies have been working for the company for 30 years, some 25, and they come from different parts of South Africa, and super proud to work for a brand that represents good pillars and ethics, and they've got a vision to grow as well. They grow with us as a company. I think I've mentioned just about everything. If there's any more question, I'll be here. Thank you.
Wow, I'm amazed by the journey that you've shared and the fact that you've taken us back to PE.
Yeah.
And where you come from and the influence of your mother. So yesterday, in fact, I was having a video call with my mom, and the longest one I've ever had this year. And so I said, "Mama, guess what I'm chatting to tomorrow?" And she's like, "Who?" And she said, I said, "I'm chatting to Laduma." And she's like, "Oh, Umbuli said," thinking it's Laduma from the village. And I said, "No, it's Laduma, the guy who has made an empire out of the Xhosa culture and the attire that we wear." And so then I flipped the phone and I showed her a picture of me, so she said I must say hi.
Bye, Lennon, we'll see you.
told him, I said I can ask him any question. But he said I can't ask how many girlfriends he has because he's Xhosa. I'm just kidding. I have this conception about Xhosa people, which we shall not go into. But anyway, so welcome everyone again. Thanks, Handy, for the introduction. My name is Ngxokolo. I am an analyst in one of the big 4 banks, but I love to facilitate discussions and talk, so I do this on a part-time basis. So thank you, Impact Hub, for having me. So we're going to start off things with introductions and introducing ourselves in our native Xhosa way. And if you will allow me to introduce myself again as Ngxokolo, intombi yasemqanduli eyasenthatha ezalwa ngumabhayi isithuko sam ngumajola ngumangwane uthola ukuthi akwazi andisitsho ke ndizalwa ngujola umama ngumabhayi ekwasemqanduli. So I want to have you introduce yourself.
Introduce myself, yeah. With pleasure. I like to articulate things before I get them out there. For all the people that don't know what ukuzithutha is, ukuzithutha is to praise your ancestral lineage. So basically, I'm from the Mbondo clan. Mbondo means horn. I guess that's a crest that Mbondo people created for themselves. When we praise ourselves, we mention kings from 100 years ago, from 300 years ago. Nyawuza, Mthahla, Undayeni, Siqelekazi, uNgqongqoshe, Mhlamba wawubende, inyama ikhona, Camakho, ibandiwe. I only got in touch with the heritage when I had to go through a circumcision process. Prior to that, I wasn't really connected with my father's side, and it has been the most fascinating thing for me. Late last year, I met the king of the Mbondo people, Ndamase, and he invited me to the great palace, Those are things that we've forgotten as South Africans, as native South Africans. Thank you for giving me the platform to Twitter.
Yes. And I think it's quite important because of your brand and what it stands for. So thank you for that. In fact, it's important what you said.
Yeah.
So it was quite good to hear that.
Actually, in the Lion King soundtrack, there is a Mbondo praise by Lebu M. Get that album and make sure you listen to that.
Yeah. So in our talk today, you've covered a lot of what we are going to discuss. But just to take everyone through what we are going to discuss. So he's touched on his background, so we're not going to talk too much about that. But we also want to talk about the fashion industry. If there's any aspiring designers here or people in the industry in terms of what you can share. We're going to talk about your thought around mentorship. We're also going to talk about your thoughts on the concept of Afro-capitalism and how we can build Africa through small business and entrepreneurship. And then we're going to take questions from the floor, and then you can also have some passing remarks. So just as a start, I picked up, you referenced the Xhosa tradition obviously a lot. You did say I look boring. By the way, this is Mpata. And I wore it intentionally because it's part of the 200 that he spoke about in terms of the Xhosa traditional attire. So this is something that women would wear, but men could also wear it. So why do you feel like it's important to infuse the culture into the fashion industry as a designer? Because you talk about it a lot, but I just want to know why.
I think it is important for us as local designers to focus on our culture because it is our strongest heritage. When I go to France with the French, you see their heritage on the buildings, architecture, you see it in the ornaments, you see it around the Louvre, you see it everywhere. But it saddens me and maybe other people to come back home and you see like very minimal of that. So on set, you know, I foresaw something which was beyond knitwear when I started Maxhosa. I saw our patterns on buildings. I saw our patterns on furniture, on soft finishing, a lot of things. But I didn't, of course, know how to approach it, because as a person that wasn't an established entrepreneur at that time, I was like, how do I get there? For me, the best way I started with was design, because I had something tangible to go and sell. If I was all talk, no action, nothing would have materialized.
So in you taking the designs forward internationally, you said you had good reception?
Yeah, the reception was great on set when I went with the products overseas. However, I have to highlight that a lot of people have a misconception that we as designers are so desperate to be praised overseas. For me, that is not the case. My first priority market is the South African market, because that is the market that I designed my product for. Of course, the exchange rate is there, is good, and the demand is there, but local people get so sad, you know, especially the ones with money. You sending products overseas, they can see them on social media, but on the ground here in South Africa, there's nothing to buy. Otherwise, in terms of reception overseas, they loved it. And a lot of them asked me, what is Xhosa? And I have to explain, Xhosa people are second biggest cultural group after the Zulu. This is this is how their aesthetic looks, and take them through a journey of anthropology, which they had no idea existed. You know? Of course, Nelson Mandela gave them a hint. I just had to elaborate on that yo, this is not our heritage is not some African dance, wuha, curio experience. It is a way of living that our forefathers used to understand a lot of things. It has astrology, it has science, it has aesthetic, it has a lot of things. It's life, it's a way of living that can be experienced into a lifestyle as well. You know, I was more interested into the lifestyle aspect of the heritage.
I like the fact that when you take the designs, or when you showcase your designs in South Africa, in the continent, and internationally, you sort of have to go to a story in terms of who are Xhosa people. So I guess that also gives people education in terms of the cultures that are present in our continent. So you spoke about your mother, right, and what you inherited, and in one of the things I watched, you talked about her giving you a commodity. Can you please just frame that for us? I think because a lot of us get commodities and we don't realize what that commodity is.
Yeah.
A lot of us say, oh, I did not get an inheritance in my bank account. But how do you frame a commodity, and how do you help that define that? How do you help other people define that for themselves in terms of what they inherited from their families?
Yeah.
Could possibly take forward.
Yeah. For me, it took me a while to realize what commodity our late mother left us with, because when she passed away in 2003, as you know, in each and every household, you know, when someone passes away, people fight over house, furniture, and money. We didn't have anything to fight over. The house belonged to my father. We grew up in it, and we were born in it. And the only tangible thing that we can think of was that knitting machine. I was the only person that could use it. And there was no money in the bank account that she left. She wasn't that connected with her family as well. So we couldn't go out and say that, oh, Magas, give us this, that. We couldn't be possessive and all. In 2013, I created a collection called My Heritage, My Inheritance. So I rewinded back and thought, yo, when my late mother used to read us Xhosa anthropology books as bedtime stories, that was a build-up. When she taught me how to knit, that was a build-up. When she taught us a code of conduct, you know, when a visitor comes through at home, an elder, offer coffee, don't pour the sugar, put the teaspoon on the sauce, give it to, like, etiquette, you know, the life etiquette, the basics. She taught us all of those in a very young age. And I thought to myself, that's the commodity that she left us with. And the power that I had was the commodity could only be as great as the ability that I put in it. If I worked hard, that means that I'm gonna achieve 10 times more. If I was lazy and felt like I wasn't talented or anything, I wasn't gonna maximize anything from it.
So that's important when you even talk about the mannerisms, because when you now inherit when you now buy a factory from one of your suppliers, how you treat people with respect becomes how you lead, and that commodity carries throughout. So I totally see that, and I hope that as people we can see those commodities is something that we can carry forward. So thank you very much for that view in terms of how you view things as a commodity. Now let's talk about your siblings, right? Are there any people here that are in business with family? No.
Very rare.
Or business in business with friends? Okay. I'm going to ask this question for you guys. What are some of the petty fights that you have? And how do you handle that?
Jeez, yo.
Sorry, before you continue, I actually want to know, at what point did you guys decide that you would be the one, or does it come naturally that you are it's your idea, your brains, but you're using a family commodity that was there? So at what point do you decide that you would be the one that would lead the sport, and you know, how do you decide on delegation, and where do you draw the line when it comes to leading them?
Yeah. When they came into the business, I set a policy and said, when we walk into the company, we're not family. I don't know you. That's how we treat each other. I treat them as colleagues. They treat me as a colleague as well. They don't treat me like I'm the owner of the company. My youngest sister, actually, she's the most regular one in the company. Like, she is the one who sets everything in motion. I do meet people on the street and they say, hey, people that I like, you know? People that used to be idols when I was young. And they ask me for a piece. She would come over and say, hey, it's paid. We're running a business. If they don't pay, we can't run salaries. We'll run short of that. And besides, principles are important. I'm the nice guy, you know? People come in and do things that I don't mind them doing. That has been difficult to adapt and get used to, you know, because I used to run the show when I began in 2011. I used to be the accountant, the HR, I used to process payments myself, everything, jack of all trades. But now, I have to sit back and design only. My brother is in charge of finance. He does all transactions and all that. My young sister is the general manager. My old sister is the production manager. So sometimes I have to remind them that, yo, authority is important, you know? Like, sometimes, yes, it is good to make decisions, but some decisions, especially design related, you can't do them on my behalf. And I always make sure that we don't fight over petty things, you know, because it's just a waste of time.
Yeah. So you draw the line in terms of, yes, so first of all, you say when you step into the office, you're not family. but also just because, yes, I am your brother, I still am the creative director of this company. So you draw the line and say, you're the finance person, you're the production person, so you focus on that.
Yeah.
I think that's an important lesson for everyone to hear. So my next question is around, you've displayed your work in South Africa, and we're going to come back to that. You've also displayed your work internationally. So the price point in which you came into the market, I really still am saving for. I did get someone's socks from Luminance, and I was so happy that I could afford it. And in one of your documentaries, you said that you created the pin.
Yeah.
And also, I think the socks, I'm not sure, so that it's a possession that someone can own as an inspiration to owning the other pieces. I know some people in here have the pieces. Who has the piece here? Socks, right? Me the socks yeah. I know my name for now, but I aspire to it, and I resonated with what you said. So how do you take the criticism around the price point and it rather maybe appealing to the international market and less the South African market, which is some criticism that you obviously have come across in the market?
For me, the pricing issue is not an issue for me. It's obviously an issue for the market. Was never a problem for myself to actually be brave enough to price at that range, because I'm the one who knew what type of effort that I put in.
Yeah.
To design, it takes about 3 months, When I do one sample, I have to do it at least 5 to 10 times before it looks the way that I think that it'd be appealing to the market. And when we produce a product, we cap it to a certain number. We don't push it to hundreds of units. We do maybe plus minus 60 pieces to make sure that there isn't too many of them on the market. The raw material choices that we make, we always go for 100% natural. We've got a choice to use acrylic, which is a bad quality fiber that is not breathable, that is static, that loses color. We go with the wool because we want to create something that's curable. Like in 20 years' time, I want to have this conversation and say that, how is your jersey like? And also, with the world changes, sustainability is very important. People throw away clothes. When I used to live in London, people that shop at Primark and all of these mass market stores, they buy them for £20 and then throw them away the next day because it got torn. So high standards is what I benchmarked the products at on set. But I had to acknowledge that, a lot of people, they love what I do. They aspire to be part of what I do, but cannot instantly reach a certain price level. So in 2013, I introduced the socks and say, okay, I will have the print on socks. That is pretty much the same as the knitwear, but not the ultimate look of the knitwear. And then I had the pins. We have beanies now and scarves, and looking to introduce more products in that space. And there is a popular trend within the luxury space now where brands like Burberry, Tory Burch, almost all of them, they produce a lot of accessories for the young market, because youth is certainly crazy about luxury these days, especially streetwear boys. They can't afford certain level of products, so they buy the wallets, iPhone cases, anything that has an association with the brand or anything that they can swank with. So that is why we focus a lot into accessories, but we always make sure that we don't compromise the knitwear, the ready to wear, because that's the final prize. We all have aspirations. Even a girl that's in a village has an aspiration to buy a Louis Vuitton bag. And if you're gonna sell it to her for 1,500, they'll be like, nah, that's the bag that I want, the 45,000 rand one. Because I've set myself to work hard enough to achieve that. Luxury is like that. When you create something that a person will aspire for, there's no need to draw it down and compromise it. I've been approached by a lot of chain stores around here at home that wanted to do diffusion line with me or collaboration, and on set I knew that I don't want to do those, because when you dilute something and put it out there and then it becomes easily accessible, the same people that you are trying to compromise for will be the first one to say, no, I don't want it anymore. And we've learned that from brands like Lokshin Culture. Remember Lokshin Culture back in the days? It was over marginalized. Everyone had it. And literally, if you could give me a Lokshin Culture now, I would say, no, thank you. I always wanted to make sure that I learn from those misfortunes that other designers had in the past.
No, and that's a valid point. I originally wrote an article about designers having confidence in their product and confidence to price themselves. So kudos to you for sticking to the value that you want. And it's hard to price yourself as an artist, I can imagine.
Yeah,
especially if it's a design and something of your own IP. So kudos to you for sticking to that. I know that when I get the show eventually, my daughter's gonna have it, or my son. So that's fantastic. So back to the chain stores, right? So there was a public incident where one of the global chain stores stole, and I will use the word steal, your design. And you spoke on one of the morning shows and you said that you have patented the design and the diamond shape. How would you say designers can make sure that they are protected from these type of instances, and how were you able to recover from that?
When I graduated at the Nelson Mandela University, fortunately they had a support system with the legal side from the university. So they approached me and said, hey, please show us the unique elements about the designs, so that we make sure that before you go into market, you have them protected. Obviously, you have to be realistic. I cannot register a zigzag. A zigzag is basic. It's generic. I cannot register a circle, but the patterns that are super distinctive, that no one else could have possibly come up with, those are the ones that I registered. And that type of IP is almost close to patent. It's not a patent, but it's almost close to a patent, where you say that, okay, this is my DNA, and that is what I'm going to use. Like Louis Vuitton, for instance. They've been using that LV pattern for decades now, and it still stands strong as one of their strongest DNA, even if they do something and put a very small LV, it doesn't have the same impact as the full pattern one. So they helped me register my design, and I had to do the whole thing of renewing and whatnot. It's a very boring process, but
it's worth it, right?
Yeah, it is worth it, because when you go to a litigation, you have something to reference. You have a paper trail and say that this is what I did in 2010, it was registered, and these are the unique elements. Yeah. Even if you copy it in black and white and change colors, it's still an infringement.
Yeah. So you're saying that the patent, so how did you recover, if you're comfortable talking about it? From what I would call a David versus a Goliath case. I remember when we saw it in the news, we were like, oh geez, how is he going to get this big retailer with a footprint in so many countries to report?
Actually, the litigation is still ongoing.
It's still ongoing.
Yeah, I obviously signed a non-disclosure with them, but it was a David versus Goliath type of scenario, but I had to be brave enough to action it. When I actioned, other Goliaths came over, like DTI said, hey, if you need any source of funding for your litigation, lawyers or whatnot, we'll put money in it. We've got your back. And Saktu came in and said, hey, actually these guys, they only have retail in our country. They don't source any production from us. So we have been telling them to put in value in our country because they're just extracting and not giving back. A lot of organizations and people on the ground said, please keep us updated. If they don't come out right, we will action and stop buying. That's how people were willing to commit to it. But for me, I think what was important was to formalize the whole process, and not just do something on social media and on the media. They did actually realize that it would have a negative impact on their brand, and they sent an email and said, hey, we've removed them online, we've removed them at the store in New York, London, and here in Santin, and let's just sit down and come to an agreement. So it's still ongoing. Those things drag. It's been a year and a few months now.
But that's amazing. I think that's plausible to know that you have the courage to fight them. But also now you've got a retainer for media, for lawyers, which I think is great.
Yeah, I didn't even take that retainer actually. I went with a private company and said that this is the problem, and they said, okay, don't worry, we'll get them to pay for the legal fees. And they agreed to pay for the legal fees.
But it's good to know that it's possible. I think a lot of entrepreneurs need to know, first of all, that patenting is important, but also that when someone does steal your idea, it's possible to get them to pull stuff off their shelves and also online. Right now I want to speak about what I touched on earlier on about the concept of Afro-capitalism, right? You know that about 60% of the textiles that come into South Africa are from China. And you did say that we cannot compete with the Chinese, so we must do what we do best. It's also encouraging though to see that 12% of the textiles that come into South Africa are from the Southern African region in countries like Botswana and Zimbabwe. You have a model in your business where you source your wool locally, right? So please talk about what you think should be done in the fashion industry to make sure that we not only boost local content and source locally, but also become more sustainable.
Yeah. So when I started, I used to struggle to get a manufacturer to produce my products. Yeah. I literally went to all the knitwear factories in South Africa and said, this is what I do. I want 500 units. I want 1,000 units. They said, sorry, no, thank you. Your products are too complicated to produce, and there's no raw material supplier that will customize or whatever. I said, okay, sharp, this journey is going to be difficult, but I'll give it a try. And I also realized that we don't have a luxury production sector in South Africa. If you're looking for a shoe manufacturer that does cool sneakers, you have to go to Portugal or China or Italy and pay a humongous amount of money and duty fees and shipping and what. So local people almost don't have a choice to go to Louis Vuitton and Gucci to go and buy luxury shoes. We don't have a sustainable value chain of raw material. Still in PE, even though it has the biggest wool industry in the continent and the biggest mohair industry in the world, 70% to 90% of the raw material gets sent to China. It gets sent to Czech Republic. And then it comes back as a Gucci sweater. That's 18,000 rand. But it left a kg, you could pay 150 rand. And that sweater is 1 kg. So that's the gap that I saw, is that, I'm gonna get my raw material from PE. I'm gonna tell them to clean it, to dye it, to spin it according to my specs. I'm gonna select a certain micron and make sure that I'm giving my customers something of fine quality and convert it into a finished product. So I'm sort of doing like the D to Z value chain, and then make sure that I'm involved in that value chain as well, because A to Z is like, would be me raising the livestock, cutting it, washing the fiber, washing the fiber. So we take our process from wool, like a thread, and by the time it comes to our factory, we already worked out the design, the patterns and everything. We then convert it into fabric. We wash it, we steam it, we treat it, and then cut it and put it together, finish it, brand it, pack it, put it into stores. So we've got 2 retail stores in Johannesburg. So we retail our products. We are able to create an ambience where people feel like they are experiencing our brand. We also have an atelier service that we launched a few weeks ago, where people can come in and choose the pattern that they want, choose their cut, and we customize it according to their size. So those processes are what we as designers and entrepreneurs nowadays need to think of. It's all good and well to be famous and be well known, but if you are only involved in the last part of the value chain and just buying the product from a supplier and selling it, there won't be an evolution, because you just the frontline person. The people that are doing the back end work will benefit the most. I wanted to make sure that I get involved in that process so that I can control some of the things, and get the quality that I want. And also, when I get a huge order, I'm able to get back up and say that you want a ton, sorted. Call my supplier and say, please bring me a ton, and they deliver it the next day.
Oh, that's fantastic. That's really, really good. Especially when you talk about the fact that if you just front line, you don't reap the full benefits. But also you don't get an opportunity to innovate as much as you would have if you had the broader value chain. I shouldn't know that you take it from the wool stage.
Yeah.
I thought they first treat it for you and then you take it.
Yeah. And that has helped us a lot to innovate, because with some of the products that we create now, we create ideas that I never even thought that I would create. Like I do make jerseys with lurex, which is a shiny type of feel. So what I do is I get that from China. We don't have it in South Africa. And then I buy the wool and mix the two together. If I didn't innovate and then twisted that into the colors that I want, I would have never found a fabric on the market. I don't go to fabric stores at all. I don't have to. I create my own fabrics, and make sure that I give them a unique appeal that people would see that I don't have an alternative choice. I love this. I'm not gonna go to Louis Vuitton or Gucci and find something better or less. Yeah. Okay, so I think when you speak about your journey and in terms of what you say now, Ekaleni, you said that you just wanted something to have a few employees.
it's just so good to see how you are entrenched in the entire business, the value chain of it, and so on and so forth. So I think what I'm seeing is that this has become bigger than what you probably would have ever thought it would be, and that's just amazing to see. So well done on taking it so far.
Appreciate it.
So my last question before we go to our colleagues here is around mentorship, right? So you mentioned Gavin Raja, who gave you a platform to showcase your work. You also talked about Rita and your mother, who I would also call perhaps one of your mentors. Do you believe in mentorship? Do you mentor people? And if people want to get in touch with you in terms of mentorship, how will they get over with you?
It's Ravi Naidu actually that called me, not Kevin Raj. Mentorship, I'd say, did the greatest impact in my journey, because when I did the incubator program that they launched at the Nelson Mandela University, actually I was the first incubatee in that program. They formed it because of me, so I was the guinea pig. It's probably better now, but the value that it gave me, number one, I didn't know anything about finance or even interested. So with running a business, I had to learn about how to read an income statement so that I can see the progression, whether I'm losing or winning. I had to learn about the balance sheets and be a master of Excel so that I can calculate each and every risk that I take. And I had to learn about how to outsource. I had to learn about quality standards. So Rita taught me mainly about that. What is the international standard? How do you pack your product when you send it overseas, and how do you communicate in the production space? And I got an opportunity to travel as well, and that gave me great experience. At least with a lot of decisions that I had to take, someone precautioned me and said that, yo, if you do that, make sure, if you're selling your product, make sure you get a 50% deposit. I never would have demanded that if I wasn't incubated, because I've always thought that if a boutique wants my product, yay, I want to give it to them, and they'll pay me when they sell it. But it's not as sustainable for business. Yes, for huge corporations it is, because they invest in risks and have aggressive lawyers and aggressive finance people. I never had any of that at that time. I had to make sure that I claim 50% upon payment, 50% before the product leaves the factory. And people that were serious signed up to those policies. That's when I knew that, okay, that client is serious. And then a client would come through and say, hey, we want your product, consignment. And I would say, that client doesn't really believe in my product. Maybe in 3 years' time, they'll come back and buy up front.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some of the lessons that I learned from people that had experience. By the way, most of my mentors don't have experience in the design and fashion business. One was a chicken farmer. The other one used to be a director in a finance company. So what they taught me was basics. I had to build my own models and innovate as well.
So in case you were mentored by people outside, so you also saying to people that you don't necessarily actually need to be mentored by someone in your industry, but you can also get mentorship from people outside of that. Do you mentor people at this stage?
I do. A year ago, I started a council in Port Elizabeth called the Eastern Cape Fashion and Design Council. We have 3 mentees now and about 20 members that are registered with us. So I got support from the MEC in the Eastern Cape that said, hey, we're giving you an award with a check, but this check, we want you to use it to help 3 designers in the province and make sure that they maximize their talent. That's how I started the fashion council. So I get an Instagram message or a Facebook message at least every day of someone that's asking me to mentor them, but I refer them to the council and say that, okay, we're gonna list all of you in a portal and get other people to mentor you. I myself, in my personal capacity, I can't do all of that myself. Of course, I will focus on the highest potential cases. If I see someone that person, like for instance, one of my employees who was my intern first day of my business, he was my senior when I started, and he had an idea of iPhone case with beadwork. That's how the idea came about. And he had no idea where to start. And so I said, okay, let me help you out with this. But when I realized along the line that he does not have any aspirations of becoming an entrepreneur or be involved in a business, he just wants to design and he's good at it. 2 years ago, I employed him and we do the iPhone case as a collaboration. He gets commission on that. The point that I'm trying to make is that some people are really not that serious. It is your inner ability, that pushes you. If you're serious about what you do, you're gonna go on YouTube and type, how do I read a spreadsheet? How do I create management accounts, document and research and not sleep and sleep at 2 a.m. at 3 a.m. if you are really serious about what you do. Sometimes it's just not the best case scenario to run to someone and ask them to mentor you. You have to believe in your inner ability, that as a human being you've got logic, and logic is one of the most powerful things that help you innovate.
We're going to go for questions, and then I was just going to ask one more question before we officially close the session. Yes.
Actually, we've already started doing that, because when I do shows, Nigeria, Cameroon, I meet local people and they said, hey, I love my culture as well, how about you infuse it in your aesthetic? So in September, we're doing a show in New York on the official schedule. And New York is a super diverse city. So when we go out there, we have to make sure that we acknowledge other cultures within the city and represent them. If you look on our branding, we've recently changed it. Our branding now reads as Maxhosa Africa. The reason why we rebranded and removed by Laduma is because we felt like we were doing more than what we expected, and we had to acknowledge other cultures within our continent. Like for instance, if you saw the show that I did in Cape Town, we used Istolo, which is a Zulu hat, but we twisted it. We didn't take it as it is. We twisted it and it gave it our own flair. So that is us tapping into other cultures and say that we are celebrating other cultures as well, so that people, the conviviality can be much greater than what it is, because we as an African continent, we have a certain homogeneity, especially when it comes to aesthetic. If you travel to West Africa or East Africa, you're gonna see a lot of color, a lot of extravagance, boldness. So that is the recurring style that you see we aesthetic here to as African. For us to evolve the brand, we had to go that direction. and we enjoy it. I was scared to go into that space because I felt like, yo, it will be seen as appropriation, but also at the same time, it felt like it would be legit because I'm coming with my culture and collaborating with another culture. Like I met the assistant Kamamu Esther Mahlangu and said that, yo, we're inviting you to our village because we feel like Esther's aesthetic should be in various other spaces and premium, you know, and not be a cup with beads. We want to see it on premium cushions. We want to see it on a rug. And please come and help us. My journey is to go there and work with them, but in the most ethical way, and not do it in a typical way, take pattern and then just paste it. If I do that, it will be another Esther Mahlangu on a tray or whatever. I've always had guts. If you ask my siblings, I've always been the sibling that has has always been brave enough to do something. Like there was one point at home, there was a time when the government used to confiscate electrical meters if you didn't pay your bills, and they did in my house, and there was no parent, you know, to be accountable for that. If you go there, they'll ask for your ID and your payslip and all of that. So we had to go and look for our mother's cousin or auntie or whatnot. So we were studying and using candles to study. I said to my sisters, yo, I've got a plan. I'm gonna bypass that thing. You know, I saw an electrician doing it. I bypassed it. Of course, it was dangerous. My sister was standing there saying, no, don't, you'll be in trouble. I was like, nah, as long as I can do it, I will. So guts has always been something that I had, you know. I travel alone and do whatever that I want to do in different countries. I feel free. I think that comes naturally for me, you know. I take high financial risks as well. Of course, they have to be. These days, I calculate my risks, but back then, I used to care less. And yeah, there's more at stake, and I lost a lot of money then, but I've learned from that, you know, that Raymond Ackerman said it takes 90%, 95% guts and 5% capital to start a successful business. We actually manufacture for other brands, but it's a headache. The reason why it's a headache to manufacture for other brands is because they are lazy. Number one, we tell them that source your own raw material, because with our raw material, it is our unique colors that are custom made to the brand. They want us to create the patterns for them. They don't bring any samples. So because you come from a textile background and a product developer background, it makes it super easy for us when you come over and say, here's the sample, here's the yarn, convert into a garment. We'll do it overnight. Most of the time, we do have a night shift in the factory where workers come in at 5 p.m. and they knock off at 6 a.m. These days, we don't have a lot of night shifts, and those are capacities that we have available to share with other designers, but we only specially select the ones that are willing to do the work, you know, because I know it's difficult to source raw material, and some of them don't know how to, you know, because you have to tell them, the Chinese or the Italians, we want a certain micron, we want a certain count, we want a certain fiber, we want a certain blend. and those jargons are super difficult to understand, and we don't have capacity to source all of that, you know. All we offered to the market was that we are able to help, you know, because we want to raise the standards of South African manufactured products. And also as well, it is important because for us it is an extra income stream, because our machines are just lying there. Yeah.
So the answer is yes. He's got capacity.
It's yes, but.
Yes, he's got capacity. So his staff need to work night shift, and you can provide that.
Yeah.
Given certain requirements, of course. So just a question on just personal comment. When Laduma spoke about taking on the Africa domain, as you might know that you can take on your company website, .co.za, but he took on .africa and was actually one of the first entities that I've noticed outside of the listed companies that have taken .africa. So I think that's amazing to see, because internationals now don't have a question of where it comes from, and you're putting Africa on the map. Do we have any hubbers in the room? Any hubbers? Yeah. Anyone from Impact Hub? Okay. Awesome. To the people here, entrepreneurs here that are based in this hub, I see they're changing the look and they're making it look more African, and I think that's amazing. That's good work over there. What do you have to say to them in terms of what value they extract from such a hub that not only has a hub here, but also in other places in the continent, but also internationally?
I think what I'd simply say is, you guys have 24-hour access here. When I started university, I told myself that I'm gonna give them a run for my money. I'm gonna be there the whole time. I'm gonna sleep there. I'm gonna abuse their resources. I'm gonna chow their internet, just to make sure that I maximize each and every opportunity. That's what I did with the incubator as well. I slept there 2 days in a row. Slept there. I abused the internet. I asked the incubatees. I called them at 12 midnight. I asked them stupid questions. That's the advice that I'd say, you know. But of course, when you are offered infrastructure that is like this, the best way to say thank you and be appreciative of the people that started this and own this is to make sure that you give it your best ability and succeed, and also help others as well after you've done and made all the money. Yeah, and also innovate as well, because it's tough out there in the market. Your product can be hot one season, or your service can be in demand the next. There's nothing at all. And I've experienced that through people that come to me and ask me, yo, what do I do? You know, I'm not getting any sales, it's dry. But I'm a frank person. I tell them that, why are you complaining? But look at your products, man. You're trying to be competitive in a ocean of industry with a small fish. You have to make sure that you product develop your product, you refine it, you go out and test it, and make sure that it speaks for you and not you speak for it. There's an organization in Port Elizabeth called Mohair South Africa. It has a division which is called Black Farmers Empowerment Trust. So basically, about DTI and a few other GFIs, they support them by getting black people to own goats and sheep. So they've got an incentive where if you want to buy 1,000 goats, they fund you for 300 goats, and then you pay the rest. So with mohair that comes from a PE, there's certain brands There's the Kamdebu mohair. Kamdebu is an organization of Afrikaans farmers that say that we have got a certain quality of mohair that we sell. We are a brand. We are more luxury. Our mohair is finer. And then there's the Black Empowerment Trust one, which says that our mohair is supporting the black community. So with raw material supplies that we use, they mix all of that. So we choose and say and tell them that, yo, we want to have a B element, not on paper, but we want to support our brothers and sisters and our fathers, you know, give us that certain type of a wool and mohair. So that's how we easily impact progress within our community. And also as well, rugs. I'm not sure if you've seen our rugs. We have them made woven in Lesotho. So every now and then I travel to Maseru. There is a small organization of women, I think maybe 20 plus minus of them. We buy from them. Currently we have an order of, there's a movie that's going to show next year, I won't tell you which one, in the States. So they've ordered that rug. It's 4 meters by 3. They can't do it. And they told us to supply them with a frame. So next week, I might have to go to Lesotho to build them a frame. Even though I'm the customer, they told them that they don't have the resources to build it. I have to go there, build them the frame, and come back home, and then pay them for the rug. So that is what they do. And actually, equality of their mohair is not as great. It's suitable for a carpet. We can't use it on clothes because it's too itchy. So with their weaving is so inconsistent. Like in terms of a global standard of a rug, it wouldn't pass. But for us, it passes because it gives it that artistic appeal of unevenness, you know. So that's a perfect business partnership that we're doing with them. It's not a charity, it's not an NGO, whatnot. They're giving us what we want, we're paying them for it, and also impacting them. And when I first began with them, they gave us a cheap rate in terms of a square meter. I was like, nah, I cannot pay such for a square meter. It's supposed to be a little bit more. They were shocked, and I said, no, we want to pay you a little bit more. There's a lady that did a beautiful rug for us. They charged us, almost nothing. We said, no, we'll double it. That gives them a motivation and also make them believe that actually what we're doing is great. It's not some old tradition that we do to keep the lights on. I think the biggest step that you can take is going to those territories. Like going to Nigeria for me changed how I thought about Nigerians. We grew up with a misconception that, Nigerians are out on the streets selling drugs. And there's too many economic problems in their country. When I went there, I had the nicest time in the world. They are the most stylish Africans in the continent. If you don't believe me, go there. And
we were the most stylish ones.
nah, their GDP is the highest. Of course, they spend their money lavishly in the club and all that, but there is a gap there. There's a huge gap. And when you land there, you'll realize that MTN is here, DSTV is out here dictating, and a lot of South African brands. And our South African music is on TV. There's a huge gap that is out there. And a lot of people are running overseas. The money is here in the continent. And also within our spaces, not even going far to Nigeria, Elokshini, where I come from. there's a huge gap. There's no incubators at Dwesi in my hometown. There's a lot that's missing, and some solutions are easy to execute. It's just it just changes things, you know, by knowing that, oh, there's a certain problem. I think I can come up with a simple solution.
And they do say that GDPs going forward are going to be grown by entrepreneurs. So, like he says, visit the places, go out there. Even if you have to live in a backpack, that's fine. As long as you get to understand the market, so that you can always innovate for the market, but be authentic to who you are. Laduma, I'm going to close the session. I want to say thank you to everyone, and of course for Impact Hub for putting this together. And thank you for making time for us. We will now be having, people can come to you and have one-on-one discussions. So thank you very much for your time.
I'd like to say thank you as well to the Hub for inviting me over, and also I'd like to express as well that amongst our audience we have customers, Randy, and the lady next to Randy, her husband bought a jersey for their wedding. It is very important. We campaign out there for our products, but the best way to support emerging designers is to vote with your money. That's what I do these days. The shirt that I'm wearing, I bought it from another designer. I bought this from K-Wade, you know. I buy artwork and invest in other people's businesses, you know, and not only expect people to come and invest in my business only, you know. I hope that I will come and invest in your businesses one day. Appreciate it. Thank you.